Welcome to AMPEDCast, where we bring together the worlds of electronic dance music and storytelling. Get to know industry leaders and talent on the rise as we sit down with them to share their artist journey from behind the decks. Our community is one for artists and music lovers alike, so settle in and enjoy the experience.
Welcome to a special episode of the Racket House podcast. This is episode 9 for me. And this is where we discuss all things music and success in our fun corner of the world, helping to inspire, inform, educate, motivate, and keep hope alive for musicians, creatives, entrepreneurs, and anyone else who wants to grow their brand in the music or creative spaces. I'm your host, Jon Gilman. Some people call me Racket Club, which is my artist name, DJ, producer for 15 years, and a slew of other things in the music space. And it's a special episode because it's a bit of a crossover episode. We have another podcaster on the episode. She's my guest. I'm her guest. It's going to be a fun little, creative way to like be on each other's podcast. This is Cote, live from Austin. Hey, Kay.
Hey, John. Yes, I'm Cote, and I host AMPEDCast, where we interview artists and other folks in the electronic music industry to share their stories from, I call it like behind the decks, to kind of get to know artists. But we've also interview people like John and people in the community because it's all one big happy family. So it's nice to just touch the hearts of many. So we are based, in Austin, Texas, and it is so fun to connect. And yes, I'm also a creative. I'm a vocalist. I'm an MC and host, and then I curate events, and then I work with a lot of local talent as well as talent from far and wide. So that's what I'm doing here in Austin. So I'm super excited for this crossover episode.
Hell yeah. And what you won't know about this is like our 4th time attempting at doing this podcast. The first several were just scheduling issues, sickness, holidays. It's now January 3rd, so we've kind of gotten through the holiday madness, and then tried to record yesterday, and technology just straight up failed. So hopefully everyone can hear this okay. We're coming in crystal clear on the video, on the YouTubes, and wherever else you're watching us, or streaming on Spotify, SoundCloud. So thanks for being here. And yeah, I mean, just from where I'm sitting here, the reason why I wanted to chat with Kay and have her on is actually a good friend of mine who's also in the a big fan of music. That's actually the literal reason that we met. We met probably about, I'd say 15 years ago, give or take. We were both living in Boston. His name is Ken. What up, Ken? Hope you listen to this episode because you're responsible for it. And we were both going to Chicago for, it was like around July 4th, music festival happening out there. And a mutual friend of ours, also in the music community in Boston, was like, you guys should meet. You're both going to be in Chicago. And we met at this like July 4th day party in a parking lot, and this DJ named Dubfire was playing, who was a pretty big name DJ if you're in that scene at all. And Ken and I met there, and we hit it off immediately, and like the rest was history. And so we've been friends ever since. And Ken went to Austin not too long ago, met Kay at a show there at Concourse Project, one of the big venues.
It was actually a dinner party.
Oh, it was a dinner party.
Yeah, I had to think about it. Yeah, it was actually at a dinner party we met, and there was a lot of EDM there that night and the electronic music. But yeah, he mentioned you, and we were kind of doing similar things in 2 different spaces. So that's
That was that at his friend's place? Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name.
Krishna's place. Yeah.
Yeah, you know Krishna?
I know Krishna. Yeah, great guy.
Yeah.
Hi, Krishna.
Okay. Awesome. So hey Krishna, thanks again for all these connections. So yeah, I've met Krishna a few times. Awesome guy. He was out here last when they got back from Burning Man, so I got to see them immediately after going to Burning Man. So yeah, well, super grateful for the connection. I love meeting people in this world and just talking about our experiences. The goal of today is really just to talk about our respective experiences in the industry. There's definitely a lot of overlap, not just because we do podcasts, but because we actually work with artists day to day and help artists kind of grow their career, build their brands, do things like that. I know that's not the only thing you do, and it's definitely not the only thing I do, but that is definitely in the Venn diagram of our lives, as entrepreneurs, as podcasters, as people in the music space. That's definitely a common space. So we'll definitely talk about that. But yeah, I just wanted to, have you on because I think, I love hearing perspectives of different people. I also love hearing, how things are, different in different cities, right? Like I have not spent a ton of time in Austin. I've been there a couple times, but I haven't spent, an extended amount of time. I definitely have some connections there, some homies that I've met through the music world, DJ community, record labels I've been a part of, and hopefully can get down there soon. Maybe even be part of your live program, which I would love for you to tell the audience about here. Um, and yeah, we'll just have a fun little chat here today, huh?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's really great just to connect and excited to hear where we overlap and yeah, I'm excited to hear about Denver too and what's going on in the scene there as well.
Definitely, yeah. And if it's helpful, just for your audience listening, just a quick intro of myself. Jon Gilman here. Like I said, I know it's kind of boilerplate. It's kind of like cliche at this point, but I always say that music's been a part of my life, my whole life. Like dad driving me to soccer practice, listening to classic rock, blues, jazz. I started playing drums in the fourth grade. I remember this. I don't know about how your school worked, but like we had this presentation in the fourth grade where all these different instrument players would come in one by one and kind of do a little dog and pony show. And I just remember the drummer coming in, and he literally just had a snare drum, and he did all these really cool things on it, and I was mesmerized, and I was like, I want that. I want to do that. And I'm grateful that my parents agreed to sign me up for drum lessons. Because it was basically you have to do band or you have to be in choir. Like that was kind of a requirement in my school.
Mhm.
Um, so we went the band route, and this is really funny. Like I went to a public school. I mean, it's just a middle class suburban town outside of Boston. But for whatever reason, we were playing on desks. Like we had drumsticks. We were in the basement of the school, and the kids in the drum class, instruction class, were literally we were tapping on desks to learn like the rudiments and all the things like that. And I don't know, fourth grade me never questioned any of that, but we were learning how to play drums, starting out on bang tapping on desks, which is really interesting. So, yeah, was in band. I was a band geek. Learned percussion, drums. I was um, I got a drum set for my bar mitzvah. It was my gift from my parents, and formed a angsty teen rock band in like late middle school, early high school with a kid I met from my school who played guitar, who thought who embodied Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine. A singer who sounded like he was Kurt Cobain from Nirvana. The bassist, I don't know, he was a good bassist, but he didn't really remind me of anyone. And we were covering songs like from Rage, from Deftones, we even made a Beatles cover of Yellow Submarine. I don't know. Yeah. So, anyways, music's been a part of my life my whole life. I realized I had a gift for music curation. I got into dance music when I went to Australia for study abroad, and then after my early adulthood, graduated college, started working a 9 to 5. Needed to occupy my time after work. I'm living with my parents at this time, and I got into DJing. I learned how to DJ from the old guitarist in my band. He had a residency in Boston, so I through him was able to kind of like be his opener. I'd start opening for him, and I also started a music blog around this time because I loved writing and I was always really good at it, and I wanted a way to share the music I was listening to with friends. So I just like I made this little blog thing that I'd send to friends, and then some other friends, a group of friends from college approached me about what I was doing. They're like, "Hey, we want to do what you're doing, but on a slightly larger scale." So four of us teamed up to make this blog. The name was called "My Music Is Better Than Yours." I was not the biggest fan of that name. I tried to argue it, but majority ruled. And I was living in Boston, and this was around the time where like EDM was starting to get bigger in America. Like the Aviciis of the world were starting to get big. This is like 2010, 2012.
Mhm.
And we kind of just knew, Boston, for those who don't know, is kind of like it's a big town. It's a big fish, small pond kind of situation. So, and especially with dance music, like there's a ton of colleges in Boston, but so it's definitely a music town, but for dance music and electronic especially, it was a smaller community. So if you knew the players, you knew the players. And we basically would just offer to like write about these shows, kind of help them promote these shows in exchange for like some passes, some media passes or whatever. So kind of give to get in that world. And um yeah, before we knew it, this blog was getting big. We got like at our peak, we're getting like 20,000 unique visitors a month.
That's
And that
incredible.
was with, yeah, it just showed the value. We were posting, we were writing articles every day. This is before social media really blew up. Like Facebook was around, but this was not the social media that we know today. And yeah, we had writers and photographers around the country. Or like kind of we made it moment was we got invited to cover Ultra Music Festival as members of the media team. We're like on stage with some of the biggest artists in the world. Like it was super cool. So did that for a while, started getting into producing events around Boston, and then I moved to the West Coast for job opportunity, and that's where things continued growing. Got into artist management, got into being at a small record label as an A&R, which was always a dream of mine. Started this event series called Pizza and Techno with some friends that I met in San Francisco Bay Area. Um, and then moved to LA after 5 years and spent 5 years in LA, kind of doing the same thing. Got into production as well. So started making and releasing music. Went to IO Music Academy to really polish some skills there, and joined another record label called Top Shelf Disco, which was just a collective COVID shut down event. They formed a label. I joined a part of that. So yeah, I've done a lot of different things, and sorry to take up time with this long intro here, but um, I think like it's worth mentioning because it all gave birth to what I started earlier this year when I just decided corporate life wasn't for me anymore. I had a 3 month stint at a very early stage startup that was a ticketing company, and it was like adjacent to music. I'd always wanted to work in music full time, make money doing it. And then just earlier this year, started my own venture called the Racket House, I was using that name as a artist management company and production company, but then I decided I didn't want to do management anymore. I was kind of burnt out from producing events, especially in LA where it was just so competitive and so hard to run successful events there. And my reflection was like all these people coming to me for advice in the music space over the years. Could I actually make something out of this? Almost kind of make like an artist development agency basically. And I took a video of myself, put it on the internet, put it on Instagram, and I asked if people would want to work with me one on one on helping to grow the career in music, more of kind of like a strategic consultant mentor kind of role. Because I'd worked, a lot of roles in like business and kind of had the business brain and the music brain. So like, how do we help you think of yourself like a business, grow your brand, all that stuff. And yeah, I had a few clients sign up within a few days, and I was like, okay, this is real, so let's get it. And I've been doing that for the better part of this year, while still, making music, DJing, doing all that. So have to lead by example, of course, as an artist. But I'd be remiss if if I didn't say that like I wish more of my time was dedicated to making music. But I'm just really trying to make this artist development thing real and trying to help so many artists. So that's my long intro. Okay. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, no, it's very inspiring. It's actually super cool because as you were going through it, I could see elements of the overlap between where my story met yours. Very different, but we kind of came to the same conclusion, which is really cool. So, absolutely love that. Same with you. Music has been a part of my life since I could like as I was walking and talking, I was singing and dancing. I was like obsessed with Liberace. Was just mesmerized by Liberace on the screen when I was a kid. And I've always been like a natural performer. And when I grew up in a small town in North Dakota. And so there weren't a lot of opportunities. That was like the one downfall, but I did do what I could, and my parents made sure to put me into different programs because I didn't really like school very much. Just couldn't find the right fit there, and kind of went through some hard times there. And when I found music, was it just really helped me get through those times because it was a way of self-expression and other arts as well. I was in visual arts, and then I also did, I called them my radio shows, and I would just like record on cassette tapes. Yeah, that shows my age, but yeah, so I was like always really a creative kid. And then I went to music camp, and I played. I wish I would have been doing percussion. I love percussion. I love rhythm, but I followed in my sister's footsteps and played the clarinet for a few years. Hated it. But then I picked up the guitar and loved that. And really, ultimately, it came down to my vocals. That was my main source of like where
I
I
think
would,
yeah, that's a
yeah,
funny comment, like because I think grass is always greener, right? Like I
yeah,
loved playing drums, and I
hmm
wouldn't change that for the world. But what when it comes time to like learning to produce music, you have to be the full band. So I had
yeah,
like relatively no music theory background, right? Like I'm not a melody person. I'm trying to
hmm
be more of one, but when I create music, it's bass and drums first. Like that is always where I start.
hmm
And they tried to teach us music theory as part of the percussion group, and they tried to do that via like bells,
hmm
right?
hmm
Like mallet instruments. And I was so rebellious as a middle school and high schooler. I just didn't want to do that. All I wanted to do is play drums, like literally the
yeah.
full drum set, not even just a snare drum. I just wanted to bang around on the drums. So yeah, grass is greener for sure. I think if I didn't play drums, I would have wanted to play like bass or something like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
maybe we'll teach each other someday how to play our respective instruments.
I do want to get one of those drums you sit on. Was it Cahoon? Cajon.
Oh,
I
you
I'm
sit on it
butchering
and
it.
then you kind of use your hands to like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like, and I want to do that and sing. So I'm actually I'm doing my very first jam session next Tuesday with a band. So
Hell yeah.
yeah, so I guess I was stayed with vocals all the way through high school into college. And then I did some stuff in LA for acting. So I did acting, singing, dancing, and had an agent for a year, but I didn't really do much with it. This was like my early 20s. But I
Mm,
did local stuff. I came back to North Dakota from that training, and I did local commercials. I was in one feature film. Just like tried to do what I could with where I was at. I did talent
mm,
booking in college as well. And so I always loved to throw a party. Like that was always
mm,
my thing. I like to bring joy through that and through like curating different artists. Well, fast forward to a couple years ago, I got into I had my first radio show, which I brought in just people to have conversations with, and my first guest was an artist who did a live song. And then that turned into a podcast.
mm,
And then that turned into moving to Austin, Texas from Fargo, North Dakota. So
mm,
big shift, great shift. And I was actually in more of the wellness space at that point, but I was still
mm.
doing like podcasting. I was still doing entertainment, media, stuff like that. And
I
then
used
I
to date
got
a girl
into the
from
music.
Far. So I used to
Huh?
date a girl from Fargo. I wonder if you guys know each other.
Can you say her name? Yeah.
Yeah, she's not gonna listen to this. Do you know a girl named Leanna
Liana.
McFarland?
I don't think so.
That's okay. That's
We
okay,
probably have
audience.
some
We'll
mutuals.
discuss this offline. Yeah, but funny.
Yeah.
Okay. So so you moved to
Do you
Austin and
date?
you were in the wellness space. Actually, and while you're talking too, I'm realizing we have more in common than initially thought, right? Like you spent some time in LA, you party event curator. Oh my God, there was more. There was more that just came to mind.
I did artist booking. Yeah.
Bookings. Yep,
Mhm.
definitely. Okay, continue the story.
Yeah, so it kind of blew up. So I got into shuffle dancing back in North Dakota, and I did work with a couple of artists out there. And there was one artist, we, for a month right before I moved, I was like, we had one of those like, F it, let's just do this. And I danced like I was his hype dancer. He was a DJ at a local club. It was a very small club, but local bar. And we had that whole place. It was a college bar. That whole place was just mad. Like they loved it. The house actually asked me to, like, they didn't know I was moving. They were like, "Hey, we want to hire you on. We love what you bring." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, well now I'm moving to Austin. What the heck?" Well, I got out here and I was like, "Oh, that just like opened the door." So I started with just shuffling for fun, and I met artists and I really got drawn into that. And then I started Amplify EDM to help coach them, to help them think of their music as a business. My background in marketing, that's what I graduated with, marketing and graphic design. And so that's always been a part of my life too. So I was like, how can I merge these worlds together? And there is such a need for it. So that's how we started. Then we started throwing parties to be a community, like a community industry night that highlighted artists with a live podcast component. And then fast forward now, we're doing that monthly, and that's been taking off. We've got some big goals for, for 2025, but yeah, that's kind of that's how it started. And now I'm doing mostly artist booking, like talent event coordinating, both for like corporate events as well as, DJ parties. And then I'm also getting back into my artistry as a vocalist and MC and host. So it's just kind of like the same, like there's a lot of like stepping stones along the journey, but all of it is kind of led to where I'm at now.
That's great. That's super impressive. And yeah, like your podcast format is really interesting because it's live. You have a studio audience, and I think that's really interesting, because the whole world of podcasting, like remember it was like this really unique, exclusive type of media, that only a few people were doing. And I mean, I've been listening to podcasts for a while. I you know, listen to ones that are mostly like radio shows, right? Like music podcasts where I just put on a hour mix or 2 hour mix, comes out weekly or monthly, and I'd go to the gym and listen to like that's honestly one of my favorite sources of music when I'm like at the gym or working out. But now everybody's doing it, right? Like I'm doing it. Like what I was gonna say, one of the other common things we have is your podcast kind of started by accident, is what you were saying. Mine kind
Mhm.
of started by accident too. It was um, I'd always wanted to do a podcast. My kind of vision for it was like it was going to be called like Jam on This or Jam on That, and it was going to be the same. I was going to have like myself and one or two co-hosts and maybe a special guest, and we'd like come on each time and we talk about like what we're listening to and like the state of the industry and music and blah, just kind of like just shooting the shit while listening to music at the same time. And um when I started this venture earlier this year, I decided I wanted to interview his name's Mark, and he's basically head of talent, director of talent for Framework in LA, which is one of the probably big three, I would say, of like promoters in LA. So they own Sound Nightclub, they own another place called Spotlight, and then they do these pretty big events around LA, these like open air events pretty often. He also books the
Mm.
Yuma tent. They're like responsible for the Yuma tent at Coachella, which is, for those who don't know, it's like this indoor. It's a tent that has doors and it's air conditioned and has wood floors, and it's basically like you're walking into a nightclub in the middle of the desert. And it's really cool. Like even if you walk in there at 3 p.m., it feels like it's 3 a.m. It's wild. And so they
Oh,
book these
cool.
massive. Yeah, I don't know if you haven't been. It sounds like, but
Now I need
yeah,
to
they booked.
go.
Yeah, they book these massive DJs to play there, and then they're kind of expanding. They're doing stuff in Vegas, and so anyway, I was throwing parties at Sound for a while. I actually brought Pizza and Techno, which was a very successful event in San Francisco. We threw it at Audio Nightclub, which is one of the biggest, most prominent venues in San Francisco, and we did that for a few years. And we do quarterly events. And I was like, I'm bringing Pizza and Techno to LA. And through one of my friends, he had a connection with Sound Nightclub. I pitched it. It took us like a year to get our first event off the ground. Um, it went really well. Like it went so well that in the middle of the event, we were already crushing our numbers, and the GM was like, "When can you come back?" And then
Nice.
unfortunately, COVID, ruined things for us.
Mm.
But so did that event for a little bit. Then I did this other event, like a Thursday night event with one of my buddies and collaborators, Clavette, who runs Stereo Punks, and we did some events there. And we were working with Mark on like who we want to book headlining talent, so like coordinating with him on the process there. And it was always just like business transactional. But we're up at Mammoth Mountain, which is where I would go skiing, and Mark happened to be there the same weekend I was there, and we just started shooting the shit as like friends, as normal human beings. And turns out he grew up like a couple towns over from me in Massachusetts, and we're the similar age, and we actually have a lot in common as just humans and people. We'd have a
Mhm.
beer together, and like that, like really took our relationship to a better, different type of level. And for anyone listening out there, like networking is so important, but sometimes it just happens accidentally. So if you find yourself in, this is a little unsolicited advice, but if you find yourself in a situation where you're with somebody that you've been trying to build a relationship with, like try
Mhm.
to take a human element, a human side to it. Like get to know them as a person and not try to talk shop. Like I think we want to talk shop immediately when we see people that we've been trying to meet or collaborate with. And it's like, nah, get them to know who you are, get them to like you, get them, be personable. Um, but anyway, I hit up Mark and I was like, hey, like, could I interview you and record the conversation and then like use some of the snippets for social media to like help educate or inspire artists? And he's like, yeah, I'm down. So he gave me like 20 minutes of his time. We recorded a conversation back in June, and I was posting clips of it that were super helpful because I was asking very direct questions like, hey, do you look at an artist's social media when you decide if you should book them? And he's like, I hate to admit it, but yeah, I don't use TikTok, but
Mhm.
I will pull up like two tabs. I'll pull up Instagram and I'll pull up like Spotify or SoundCloud.
Yep.
And so I'm posting these snippets and people are like, where's the full episode? Where's the full conversation? And I'm like, I guess I could post it. So I literally just took this raw conversation, basically unedited or anything, and I put it on YouTube, and that became the first episode of the Racket House podcast. And from there, I just made it a goal to have on people that I thought would be really interesting. I'm trying to put myself in the listener's shoes, the independent artist's shoes. Who would they want to hear from? Who could give them tips, tricks, advice, inspiration, education? And it kind of went from there. And that's why we're talking today, because I feel like you could elicit some of that knowledge and advice. And we've been in the trenches and we've been artists and we've been doing these events. So that's how mine
Mhm.
accidentally got started.
Yeah, well, you touched on some great points there, especially like once you're in the industry, it is pretty small. Like in a way where you meet people, you're gonna start meeting people, and to be able to find that balance between, especially if you're an artist looking to get booked, to find that balance between like, you know, be human first, have conversations with someone, you see how they are and receptive, and then be helpful, go to shows, attend things. Those are the things that can really set you apart. And then, have your EPK, your press kit ready, or your elevator pitch or something, or know something about your music in case somebody asks. They more than likely will, but let it be organic. That's like one thing that I've had to learn too, coming from someplace small to here. And that's been how I've been approaching my podcast lately too, is like when I have guests on, I try to keep it very organic, talk a little bit about just life, and then get into their artistry and things like that. And that's been super helpful. Yeah, same thing. Keep it real.
Yeah, no, I mean that's great. I mean, like one of the things that I really like I beat a lot of drums, no pun intended or compared to my previous life, but I beat a lot of drums in this world of like, like there's a lot of things that I will repeat with the artists that I work with and the advice that I give. And it's like while we're so, you're a marketing person, I consider myself a marketing person too, but we're so bullish on like your online presence and being active on socials and doing all that we sometimes forget that like there's nothing more powerful than being a face in the place and like going
Mhm.
out in person and meeting people in person. And while I personally believe that you need to combine those two things, I am always like, if I'm giving my an artist like some homework to do before the next time we meet or something like that, I'm like, make it a goal to just go out to like one event a week, right? And either support an artist that you're a fan of or go support an event where you're maybe trying to play, or there are these talent buyers or promoters or venues that you're trying to build relationships with. Just like be there and do it consistently. And um
Mhm.
and when the artists that I work with do this stuff, it's like boom, we've unlocked a superpower and they're making all this progress just by going out on their own 2 feet and being there and building these relationships. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh, 100%. That's what I've been, yeah, coaching with my artists as well. Get out there, put yourself out there. And I realized too, I needed to do the same. Like I was putting myself out there, definitely doing that, but I wasn't seeing the results I was looking for. And so I switched gears recently slightly, just like a slight pivot, like all of these, are kind of stepping stones. And I thought to myself, I need to put myself out there as an artist more rather than, behind the scenes, event production. And that I've already been seeing some big things happen. So I know that that slight shift of where I'm investing my energy or how I'm investing it really helps. So I think that can really help if like an artist or anybody in the industry is stuck and they feel like they're on a hamster wheel. They're like, why am I not getting results? I'm doing all the things. It's like sometimes you just need to look at making a 1 degree shift of something different, like just as, even if it's just attending a different style of an event, or if it's tapping into your artistry in a different way, something like that. So I always say, if you're feeling stuck and you are doing all those right things, sometimes you just have to look inward and say, okay, where do I need to shift 1 degree? And it really makes a difference.
Totally. And I think that's true with a lot of things in life, right? Like as simply put as possible, like keep doing the things that are working, and for the things that aren't working, change a little bit, do something different. And that can be it could be applied for so many different applied to so many different things, like your social media posts. Like maybe they aren't getting a lot of engagement. Okay, analyze your posts and see the ones that are getting engagement, the ones that aren't, do more of the ones that are, right? Like, okay, people aren't responding to your emails. Okay, maybe try a different approach. People aren't responding to DMs, whatever. Go out in person. That's gonna change things too, for sure. So yeah,
Mhm.
and I think that's true. Like you raised a point about like remembering to like look after your own artist project too. Like I was getting away from that too. Like I'm not gonna lie, and I've probably told this to people. I don't know if I've said it on like my podcast before, but like I did ayahuasca this year for the first time, and I had very strong visions. It's that this could, I could go for hours about like what I experienced, but one of my takeaways with the message I got from this experience, one of the many messages was I need to go back to my roots of like creating music, curating experiences, curating vibes for people to go out and have these experiences, to go and enjoy themselves and dance and live. And like, I'm not kidding. These visions I was having were very music driven and inspired. They're crazy,
Mhm.
so fun. But, yeah, and and one thing that I actually, I wish it was around for all 5 years when I was in LA, but on my tail end of my time in LA, a guy named James, who's actually an early guest of mine on this podcast, started something called Industry Hours, where it was a monthly networking meetup event for artists and anyone really in the space. And it wasn't, I don't think it had to be exclusive to like the electronic world, but that's just kind of the space that he came up in. Like he's a photographer, nightlife photographer, artist manager, and now doing these events. So like he'd have a panel, and a lot of the guests that he have on, I think, or all the guests he'd have on, were some way, shape, or form related to the electronic music industry. And like this thing, I was very inspired by it for the one time I went, and then I had any LA based artists that I was working with, I'd recommend they go, and I'm helping them promote it because I super believed in it. And every month it's growing, growing, growing. And what's really cool is the artists that I was working with now make it a point to go every month. And now they're building relationships with people, and they're like looking forward to these experiences, and they're sharing it on their socials. And I wanted to ask you, I mean, I'm trying to find that here in Denver, but I wanted to ask you, like, does something like that exist in Austin? Like how does, I guess, what are the opportunities for artists in the Austin community to go out and meet each other, and maybe not have it be at a nightclub or a concert where it's like actually kind of hard to do that networking stuff? It's, you can vibe,
Mhm.
but it's loud music, you're screaming, maybe people are
Yeah.
drinking and on stuff. So like anything like that exists in Austin, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm building with Sessions. So Sessions is the live podcast event where we bring in an artist, and then they, we do a live interview, and that is definitely industry night. There are some other opportunities here. There's a few different groups. I'm surprised at how spaced out the groups are. So I've been trying to go to everything, meet everybody. I just presented for the Austin Dance Music Summit, and most of the people in the room I didn't know, which I was really surprised. It was like a packed house. I didn't know but maybe 5 people there. And so that was really great to get in front of a new audience, connect with the organizers, make friends. I had one of the organizers, Carlos, give an announcement at sessions. So I do community announcements, and it's open to anybody, music lovers, industry folks, anybody who really just wants to hear the stories and hear great music. And so we have that. We're really building that out. We want to do something for South by Southwest. So we're that was a that this is like where, taking risks sometimes. And for me, I had even a couple of the artists I know were like, you don't, this doesn't sound like the brand. Why are you doing this thing? Like, what is this live podcast thing? Even though we had been doing it in the past at a different venue, I think it was people were very confused at the decision to do this. And so I got a little heat for it, nothing crazy, but it just like I got nervous. I was like, what am I even doing? And we did our first one, and I was like, this is where I need to be. This is what I need to be doing. It's something different. So it ended up being, it's like sometimes that thing that scares you the most, or that thing that feels like this isn't quite my norm, try it. I mean, what's it going to do? We would have maybe done one or two, it would have fizzled out, but it's been growing and getting bigger every time. And we've had artists that have played Seismic Dance Event, which is a huge, like a local festival that Concourse Project does twice a year. And so I had a couple of those local artists, some artists that have moved away that came back and sharing their experiences. So yeah, long story short there, yes, I'm building that here. So sometimes we need to be the change if there is a need in the community.
Yeah, no, I mean that's great. I mean, yeah, no risk it, no biscuit. That's definitely like one of my taglines that I like. I actually bought this piece of art here that says "Take risks, make moves."
Yes, I'm for
Kick
that.
today's ask, right? Yeah, I mean, like, look, I think, the world rewards people who are bold and take risks and things like that. And I've taken some risks and they didn't work out, and I'm on this roller coaster now of of for some, our love for music is a kind of our own worst enemy because it's such a hard industry to be successful. And not that it's impossible, but like, I'm on this trajectory now where I've had some success. I've had some days where I'm like, what am I doing? Like
Yeah,
this,
same.
but like I love this, right? Like what we're doing right
Hmm.
now in this moment. Like I feel like it is a one of my callings, like to talk and interview people and to find common ground and to elicit inspiration and education and stuff with people. And so I'm glad you were able to find that calling. And so with the event itself, is it, so you're interviewing an artist in a live setting, but then are there opportunities like for just like socializing, networking time? Like, are people able to come together and just like shoot the shit, basically?
Yes, so we open the doors. It's a Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. So it's like a industry night. We have an hour usually before the podcast at 7, and then we do community announcements about 10 minutes before that. And so we go for about 30 to 40 minutes recording, and then they give us an hour set, and then we close the doors around 9 o'clock. So during the set, we do a lot of networking. That's like usually when I'm out networking, and there's a lot of people going around. There's a little ping pong table out front. It's quite a vibe. So yes, there's definitely room for the networking, unless we do a double feature, which we've done before. We're doing that in January as well. So we'll have like a podcast at 6:15 and then one at 7. And we do giveaways. We make it a vibe. We give away show tickets, like, you know, different booze. We're sponsored by Tequila 512, and we use their building. Gorgeous space. But yeah, I think it's just like we wanted to bring something fun and different and give people a place to connect and still listen to music, but it's not like a club, like you said. It's more, the lights are on, it's intentional. Yeah, so that's kind of the vibe.
That's a good vibe. Yeah, I mean that's kind of like this. I've been in Denver. for about 5 months or so. And I've been, what I like about Denver is there's a great community here. Like some of my first impressions, like I've been coming to Colorado for a while, but I would come like when I was working one of my corporate jobs, it was my territory. Like I was in
Mhm.
sales, and I'd come out here and have my business meetings and stuff. And I had some friends who lived out here, and I'd tack on extra time, or I spent 5 weeks out here during COVID, kind of tail end of ski season, but was living with my buddy in the suburbs. So like, I had some friends here, but like once I actually fully moved here and fully immersed myself, one of the things that I loved is like very friendly people, really strong community, great music scene. Like people,
Mm.
I don't people who don't know Colorado and Denver, like I don't think understand like there is a thriving music scene here. And people, when I decided to move here, everyone I would tell who knows, people who know me know I'm in music and that's my thing. They're like, "Oh, there's a great music scene there," and I'm like, "Cool, it's dope." And so it's true. I mean, I live 20 minutes from Red Rocks, arguably one of the best venues in the world. And I've been able to see. I think I saw like 4 shows at Red Rocks within my first like month or two here. And yeah, so and like coming from LA, like everyone's like, "Oh, LA's a music city, like you got to be there if you're in the industry." Well, no you don't, first of all. Second of all, it's
Mhm.
so competitive and it's so spread out, and like, there's pros and cons with all that we probably don't have time to get into now, but with Denver, like physically being able to get around, the diversity of music that comes through here, um is really inspiring. And so like what one of the things I did when I first moved here was I'm a big like threads proponent, Instagram threads, which for those who don't know is like their answer for Twitter. So it's like a
Yeah.
lot of text based, but their algorithm is great because it connects you with like-minded people, and that could be like geographically, that could be entrepreneurs, that could be people in music. And I posted, "Hey, just moved to Denver. Where are all my Colorado music heads at?" And I got dozens of responses, and like connected with people there that I'm now like friends with and have collaborated with or have played with. And so I met like somebody who's like a talent liaison for. They're now Insomniac came to town recently, and kind of, for those who don't know, Insomniac's a huge promoter. They do like EDC and stuff. But yeah, so people who are connected in the industry, and then I got some gigs out of it, and then I was like trying to ask around. I'm like, are there any like Denver music meetup networking events similar to like what my buddy started in LA? I wanted to try to replicate that here because I found so much value in it.
Mhm.
And I got connected with this dude, Nick, who goes by Mick. And yeah, he kind of, we met and grabbed like a coffee and chatted, and he'd been running something called like Music and Tech Denver, which was, I think, kind of meant to be more I think like, yeah, Music and Tech, like kind of what it sounded like. There was a Discord channel, and he'd do these meetups with like open decks and stuff, which is cool because who doesn't love open decks.
Yeah.
um and I was like, I'd love to kind of be a part of this and maybe grow it and see like where we can take it. He's like super down for it. So these are monthly events. There's actually one next week for anyone listening who hears this, who's happened to be based in Colorado and is a musician. Uh, uh, Thursday the 9th at your mom's house, actually the name of the venue.
I love
And
that.
there'll be a couple of speakers, there'll be some networking and pizza and open decks and stuff. Unfortunately, I won't be there. I'll be in Costa Rica at a music festival, but yeah, and we're going to see where we can really take this thing. But I really think like kind of like what you're doing, like what other people have done, this opportunity to kind of meet, collaborate. It's like I completely believe in strength in numbers. I believe in rising tides.
Mhm.
The music industry is such a crazy, chaotic place. No real playbook. There's a lot of competition, but you can really win together and help each other out. And I'm super grateful to have been connected by some of the people here that are just selfless, like just introducing me to people or helping me do something, or whatever it is. So I want to be able to give back in that same spirit.
Love that. And what you said is so true about, different communities offer so much in the music scene. Austin's the same. Like it's thriving. We have acts big acts coming in to Concourse Project and other clubs. We just had a club open downtown, and we have local scene, like a very supportive, tight knit local scene. We do some open decks too. That's where I met everybody. Was actually at an open decks. It's no longer in existence, that event, but it was something that really brought some of the local artists together that are thriving now. They're playing gigs all over town. Some of them are traveling a little bit. So I think it's huge. Yeah, supporting your community can really boost your artists and boost yourself. But yeah, you rise together. That's really the mentality to have in this crazy industry.
1,000%. I mean, if we could bottle that up and just send it out to everybody in the world, and like, it's just one of those things where every community, every industry, I think, but just music is so different. But yeah, if you can really support and help prop people up, not that you should be doing it to come back around to yourself, but it often does come back around, right? Like
Hmm.
it's that golden rule: treat others as you want to be treated, and give more than you can take, give more than you take. um and yeah, so what kind of time check do we got here?
Oh, we have a few minutes. I would love to do a headliner hot seat. That's usually what I do on
Let's do
AMPEDCast
it.
is headliner hot seat. So these are
Should I be sitting?
questions.
I'm standing. Should I be sitting?
You can be headliner hot standing. That's okay
Headliner,
too.
stretch my legs.
uh, so yeah, I feel these are going to be some like fun industry questions. So my
Yeah.
first question for you is, what is the craziest event you've ever DJ'd?
Yeah. I guess, excuse me. I guess, yeah. We were talking about this before we started recording. I mean, I've played at Burning Man, and then, like, for those who haven't been, like, Burning Man is such a wild and unique experience that I always say to people, if you haven't been and you have at least 5% desire to go, just go, because there's nothing in the world like it. So I've played there, but I think my better answer is, when I first moved to Denver, I was trying to just, poke around, network, try to find opportunities to perform as a DJ, because that's what I love doing. It's my biggest outlet, my biggest favorite creative space. And I got connected with a guy who like ran a collective here in Denver, and he wanted me to come audition for him because they were taking on some new DJs. And he said, "Okay, well, the gig is we're DJing this place called the Scarlet Ranch this weekend." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And he's like, "Do you know what that is?" And he's like, he said, "Do you know what that is?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "It's a lifestyle club." And he goes, "Do you know what that is?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know what lifestyle means, And for those listening who don't know what lifestyle means, it's a swinger club." So I was like, "All right, let's do it. Let's see what happens." He's like, "Bring your USB, bring your music, and you can play with me and audition, and we can see what your vibe is." And so I show up to this place, and it's like 30 minutes south of Denver. It's like, and it almost it's like a big cabin almost, like. And I get inside, and like the first thing I hear is an ass slap, like somebody slapping somebody's ass. And I'm like, there's people wearing everything from like business casual, like button down shirts tucked into slacks, to like nothing, to like nakedness. And
Mhm.
it's BYOB. You have to pay for a membership. Even though I was DJing, I still had to like buy a membership, and it's a lifetime membership. So you have to be a member, and you have to sign up. And anyway, long story short, there's like an indoor air. It's so interesting. Like, you can have a full sit down dinner there. You can play pool. There's bars with sports on TV, and then the downstairs is where this stuff goes down. You have some fun down there. No phones allowed. Let's just say that much. But yeah, it was midsummer. It gets hot out here, and they're DJing on the patio. And on the patio, it looks straight towards this giant pit, this giant foam pit. And I guess during the summer months they have foam parties.
Mhm.
FOAM, foam, like soap. And yeah, and so like we're kind of DJing on this patio. People are kind of like around us dancing and stuff, but we're literally watching naked people play around in this foam pit, and there's like porn playing in the background and stuff. So Yeah, that was definitely one of the most unique experiences that I've had DJing. Sorry for the long answer, but I felt like I had to really set that one up.
That was a great headliner hot seat question. I think that was a juicy enough question. I have one more question. This is a little bit more about like you. In your like pick any point in your career in music. What is a challenge you faced, and how did you overcome it?
Um, I don't have a lot of regrets in my life. I think I've like as much as I have. We all have those days where we're like down or fighting something, or we're like, what are we doing? I've had that a lot this year with this new business and venture and stuff. But one of my biggest regrets in life was not learning how to produce music earlier than I did.
Mhm.
I had a friend when I was living in Boston. This is like my early mid 20s when I was like coming up in DJing, and I had a friend who tried to teach me Ableton, which is one of the, I guess, probably big three software programs that people use to produce with.
Mhm.
And when I first opened up Ableton, it looked like absolutely a foreign language, and it's very intimidating for those who know it. And I was given homework to try to do, and I just didn't do it. I just didn't, for some reason. I just did not pursue learning how to produce. So then, cut to like a little bit of my time in San Francisco, and then definitely my time in LA. And for some reason, I just never I was like, I'm a DJ. Like that was my thing. But then like as everybody as all these people started becoming DJs too, the barrier to entry was lower. Like the technology was easier to purchase. Like everyone's becoming a DJ. And so the competition gets more stiff. And not the one of the ways you can stand out as a DJ is by making your own music and getting known for your actual music and your productions. And that's really being an artist. And so that was a challenge of mine. I felt like I kind of either hit a plateau, or I wasn't really getting as many opportunities as maybe I could if I really started building my brand around the actual production side too. So not knowing how to produce, but wanting to produce, it was a combination of sitting with other producers and collaborating, because I have a ton of stuff in my head that if I can get that out on paper, or explain to an engineer how to do it, like that's helpful. Picking up tips and tricks from them, YouTube University, and then going to IO Music Academy. I am a dropout. Admittedly, I did not complete their full program. It was a great program. I just don't learn the best in like a classroom setting. And
Mhm.
it was like so much every week that like I needed time to like digest and all that. So I do consider myself a producer, but I do also believe that I have a ton to learn every day, and I can continue polishing my sound. So that is probably one of my biggest challenges. And I wish I had started the journey on production a lot sooner, but I'm still on it. And I just need to remind myself to make the time, like you said, like to make the time for it every day, because I get so caught up in the business that I'm running and all the things I have to do. And it's social media, it's the podcast, it's marketing, it's sales, it's client calls, it's everything. But actually finding the time and the space to create is so essential with all of this. So again,
Mhm.
another long answer, but I had to explain.
Of course. No, that's a great answer. That is something I think many, can relate to. So, yeah, I always like to ask the final question for or the day, and it's what inspires you to continue to do the work you do?
And by the work, do you mean like the artist development stuff I do, or
All any of it. Yeah, you choose. It's your choice.
um, well, I will say that, yeah, from this business that I'm growing, the artist development stuff, in all the work that I've done, like career wise, I've never felt so energized by the work that I've done. Like when I sit with a client and I have our weekly session or whatever it is, and there is clear growth, there is clear improvement happening right in front of my face that I'm not taking all the credit for, but I feel that I inspired or helped with, like
Mhm.
that. I will spend 12 hours a day doing that, because it fires me up so much. Like when I could take an artist that I worked with, who in my opinion was maybe timid or very soft spoken or didn't have a lot of confidence, like very talented but didn't have a lot of confidence. And then after a couple months, he literally started a sentence by saying, not to be cocky, but, and I'm like, stop. Did you just hear yourself? Like that is growth, right? And
Mhm.
maybe we don't always, maybe we can't always measure that stuff, but the mindset shifts and the actual actions being taken um, are huge. So that's what keeps me going. And then from like my own artist project and like producer DJ side, like if I'm DJing, and we've all been there as DJs, sometimes the crowd isn't there. You know, maybe it's an opening slot, but if we can get one person to dance, if we got one person dancing, we're feeding off them, and that makes it worth it. And from the
Mhm.
production side, honestly, like when we make art, we have to remind ourselves that we're doing it for ourselves. So when I'm making music, it's not for anyone else. It's for me. If I'm happy, if I'm feeling it, if I want to share it with people, that pumps me up. So those are three different answers to your question.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you, John. This has been such a fun episode. I love that we did a crossover. It's kind of a
Yeah.
something different, and it's cool to see other people doing things in the space. And I'm excited to connect with your audience and you to connect with mine. So, yeah, this has been
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Cross pollination and yeah, I feel like we're literally just getting started. We've been talking almost an hour and I feel like we're just getting into it. So I would love to ask you more questions, but I think this will have to be maybe a part two, or you know, in a perfect world, I think I'm coming out to Austin and maybe we get to chat further in your live setting.
Mhm.
That'll be super fun. So let's definitely keep that line open. And Kay, thank you so much for being on the Racket House podcast and sharing your story. And I love what you're doing for the Austin community, and I think it's really inspiring, and especially the like the live, you know, the live component of it, because we live in this digital world, but like still getting out facing the place is really important. So thank you
Mhm.
for making the time and bearing with schedules and technical difficulties. What I like to do at the end of everyone is we just like quickly smile at the camera, and then I'll take a screenshot and kind of use that for like the, you know, the my cover art and all that. So there's no
Dig
official button click. We just look at the camera, we say 1, 2, 3, smile,
that.
and then I will I'll grab that later from when we upload stuff. But yeah, so I will sign off, then you can sign off. Thank you so much for listening to the
Mhm.
Racket House podcast. This was episode 9 with Cote. I love that
Uh,
name. uh
Thank you.
Out of Austin, making moves, helping the music scene down there and beyond. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care everyone. We'll see you next time. Peace.